Well, President Trump predicted it would be a historic day, and it was, but not for the reasons he said it would be. The future's down again this morning, Joe. The Dow down about 400 as we sit here right now, another full percentage point. We'll see if that holds as the markets open in a couple of hours. But yeah, I mean, it was striking to see not just how hard the markets were rattled across the world, but also the condemnation across the world from leaders, from allies, from financially business people who on many other issues, and in fact on most economic issues, side with Donald Trump, saying this is wrong-headed, it's a mistake, and the evidence was in the markets yesterday. We're going to break down all of this with Steve Rattner and our panel of analysts. We also have the co-host of our fourth hour, Jonathan Lemire. He's, of course, a contributing writer at The Atlantic, covering the White House and national politics, columnist and associate editor for The Washington Post, David Ignatius, the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale, as I mentioned, former Treasury official, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner, and NBC News national security editor David Rode. Joe.
Yeah, let's just put a fine point on this once again, Jonathan Lemire, and you've done this. You've covered the president through several elections. You certainly have studied in what he said about tariffs. I think it's so important to underline to Americans after yesterday, this massive day of economic loss on Wall Street, that this isn't something that he dreamed up over the last month or so. You know, a lot of times in the first term, people would accuse the president of just going randomly wherever he wanted to go on economic policy or on military policy. Donald Trump, at his core, has believed in tariffs since 1987. We're going to show you a Dick Gephardt ad, a famous Dick Gephardt ad from the 1988 presidential campaign, where he talks about the importance of tariffs and how that was center of mind in the 1988 campaign for a lot of people. You go back that far, Donald Trump has been talking consistently about tariffs. So he had this planned. He promised during the campaign he was going to do it. He even said tariffs are like his favorite word in the English language. So, and also, he and Elon Musk both said Americans were going to have to face some hardship getting from globalism to where they believed they needed to be with protectionism. So, again, this isn't something he just dreamed up. This is actually a calculated plan to follow through on something that he has believed in for about 50 years now.
Yeah, Trump has declared it, as you noted, that tariff is the most beautiful word in the English language. He later amended it. He's like, well, maybe God, maybe love, but I do like tariff. And he is someone who, he has changed his views on so many issues so many times over the decades, including switching political parties. But there are a few things that have crystallized. They've all kind of date from the 1980s. Some of them are cultural references, including the importance of Time magazine. And then others are economic and then mostly tariffs. This is something he has now believed for 40-odd years in the public forum, probably longer privately. He believes in tariffs. Now, economists largely disagree. They say what he thinks tariffs will produce won't occur, not at this moment for the nation and global economy. But this is not something that he dreamed up over a weekend at Mar-a-Lago. This is something that he has wanted to do. Now, the implementation, that was fuzzier. That has been something that has gone back in the White House aides, the Economic Council, outside advisors, administration officials have spent the last couple of weeks trying to figure out exactly how to do this to hit that April 2nd Liberation Day target. And certainly I was talking to a couple administration officials yesterday who said, one of them said to me, all we've been talking about now for weeks is tariffs, and it's finally here. But in the last 48 to 72 hours before the announcement, they decided to go big, really big. And Joe and Willie, that's the last point to make here, is that there's been a thought, especially in the business community, that his talk of tariffs, a negotiating tactic, a bluff. He said it repeatedly on the campaign trail. A lot of his crowds really cheered for it. They wanted this to happen. They wanted the tariffs to happen. Yep. Business leaders less so, thinking he might just be negotiating. But, Joe, that's what I kept hearing over and over yesterday. This is not a negotiating tactic. These are real. Right. Yes, eventually it will lead to deals. It will lead to sides sitting at a table and coming up with something else. Right. But these are not going anywhere, not anytime soon.
Well, and again, you're right. The MAGA base cheered for this. Steve Bannon will be the first to tell you they cheered for this. They wanted this. You go back to 2016, Willie. his closing argument was that 2-minute ad that Steve Bannon put together. It was just an absolute indictment on globalism and what it had done to working class Americans. What a lot of politicians warned back in the 90s and the early 2000s, what some of these trade deals would do to working class Americans. So their attitude, a lot of their attitudes are, how can it get any worse? And we will see very soon. But just again, we've been talking about going back to the late 80s, just to put a time capsule on this to explain how long Donald Trump has believed that tariffs needed to be implemented. It goes back to the time when Japan was on the rise economically, and they were buying they were buying 30 Rock, and they were buying Pebble Beach, and they were buying all these American landmarks. People were up in arms. They were very angry. And that's really when Donald Trump started locking in on the need for tariffs and pushing back against these countries.
Yeah, you can find interviews, and we've played some of them over the last couple of weeks on NBC in the 80s when he's talking about the power of tariffs and how our government should use them more effectively. And then just go back to the presidential debates in 16 and 24. And he is asked, won't these tariffs raise prices on everyday Americans? He says, absolutely not. We're about to find out. As I mentioned, stock futures in the red again this morning after President Trump's sweeping tariffs sparked that massive sell-off yesterday. Stocks losing more than $3 trillion in market value. In response, analysts with J.P. Morgan raised their risk of a recession this year now to 60%. Despite the economic turmoil, President Trump appeared unfazed yesterday, telling reporters it's all part of the plan and the tariffs give his administration leverage over other countries.
I think it's going very well. It was an operation like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is. We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal?
Every country's called us. That's the beauty of what we do. We put ourselves in the driver's seat. If we would have asked some of these countries, almost most of these countries, to do us a favor, they would have said no. Now they'll do anything for us. But we have tariffs, they've been set, and it's going to make our country very rich.
Are you open to deals with these countries if they're calling you?
Well, it depends. If somebody said that we're going to give you something that's so phenomenal, as long as they're giving us something that's good. For instance, with TikTok as an example, we have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate. Always have. I've used them very well.
So, Steve Rattner, the president's still suggesting that these are just negotiating tools, as $3 trillion of wealth are erased yesterday and prices are sure to go up in the coming weeks and months. What do you make of the case he's attempting to make here?
Well, first of all, his case is not always that clear. There are two ways to think about what he might be trying to accomplish. One would be to lower tariffs so that we can export more to these other countries and have what he would call fairer trade, a more level playing field, whatever. The other would be that he thinks he's somehow going to restore manufacturing back to where it was in the 1970s, 50s, whatever, and build lots of factories, and we're going to keep these tariffs high in order to keep other stuff out and build manufacturing capacity here. They're both a fantasy, but for different reasons. On the first one, when you look at some of the tariffs he's put in against other countries, especially Vietnam, Cambodia, Bangladesh, they are not in a position to buy much from us. It is normal, and I can get into the economics of it, but I'll spare them for the moment. It's normal of them to run a trade deficit with a country like ours, and we get, in return, cheaper, better goods that Americans have been enjoying now for many years. And so it's really not clear what the end game is here that's going to make any sense. It doesn't feel, remember in Trump 1.0, he put a bunch of tariffs on and then he quickly started negotiating and a bunch of them came off and he announced deals with Canada and Mexico and so forth. He feels much more dug in on this this time. And I would also make the point, he said in that clip that things are going exactly as he thought they would. Is he really saying that he expected the stock market would roll over and drop by 4% and $3 trillion of wealth would be wiped out? Was that his idea of it going exactly as he expected to? The market had no idea this was coming. It's a terrible shock. I don't know anyone who thinks it's a good idea. And as you said in that JP Morgan reference, the recession odds have now gone up into the 50-60% range.
And, you know, David Ignatius, this is a bet that he, again, has been saying was coming, that he was willing to take. And it reminded me yesterday as I was seeing the stock market go down, but also seeing that this is what Donald Trump has said he was going to do, because we were going to have to get to the other side of unwinding globalism. It reminded me about what you said after I very aggressively was opposing the Iran nuclear deal. You said, Joe, it's an existential bet. It's an existential gamble. And I think this is the economic side of it. I was reminded by Vin Weber, a Republican House leader who got elected in 1980. He said, this is what everybody, now Vin Weber against these tariffs. He's a Reagan free trader. But he said, a lot of this reminds me of what people were saying about us in 1980. When we had Graham Rudman, Art Laffer with his curve, Jack Kemp, supply side politics. Everybody said we were going to blow the system up, and it worked. So Vin Weber said, even though I'm against these as a policy matter, he's taking an existential bet, much like Ronald Reagan did on supply side economics and much like Barack Obama did on the Iran nuclear deal. The question is, in this case, it's one thing when you're cutting taxes for Americans. It's another thing when prices are going to be going up at Walmart.
So, Joe, he's making a bet, but he's making a bet with our money. He's making a bet with the retirement accounts of every American. He's making a bet with the business futures of every American company that exports. He's making a bet with farmers who need export markets that now will be closed to them. It's easy to say he's making this great bet. And, you know, watching him yesterday, I had the sense that this is a president who is in love with what economists almost universally say is a bad idea. But he's convinced of it. He looks serene as he says, oh, I knew this was coming. So he's, as you said, he's making a bet. It's not his money. It's the United States of America that's on the craps table here. So, you know, I think we're in for an enormously difficult period. How people adjust over time. It's not just yesterday's stock market fall or today's. The talk, as Steve Radner was just saying, is now about increasing likelihood of a recession, increasing likelihood of inflation returning because you have these big increases in prices caused by the tariffs. Inflation expectations, a lot of what inflation is people expecting that it's coming. Inflation expectations up big time. And so you have a possibility of the worst of all possible worlds in which you have both inflation and stagnation of the economy. The dreaded term is stagflation. No president ever wants that. And so I think that must be, sensible people in the White House have to be thinking, is that what we're heading into? And what are we going to do about it?